Welcome back. It is time for today's Talkback segment. Each day we post a question on Court TV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and then respond right here on the show. Now, the case is in the hands of the jury in the best friend murder retrial. Austin Ford is facing life in prison after the death of 18-year-old Tori Lang. Now that all the evidence is in, we asked you, has the state proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt? Here to discuss, still, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Bruno, and litigation trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. All right, gentlemen, our first comment comes from Case for Liberty. He says, or she says, I have undeniable and unwavering reasonable doubt. This case should have never gone to trial, and retrial is just overzealous prosecution. Rich, what do you think? Is it overzealous? I mean, I'm torn on this one because I think there were significant issues with his actions after that raised serious questions. But the science can't say what actually happened between the two of them. We have a lot of cases where we don't know what actually happens, and it's all the other stuff that gets guys convicted or girls convicted. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's overzealous prosecution. He was there. He said he wasn't there. And so there was obviously suspicions raised, and, you know, there was evidence to suggest that he may have done it. Most of that evidence is exactly right, what he did after the fact. And I think that's fairly presented to a jury to figure out and make a decision. I don't think he'll be convicted because of the problems you mentioned and the lack of scientific evidence, but I don't think it was over prosecution to put it before a jury.
All right, our next comment comes from Anonymity. Anonymity says, in part, where the shell casings landed is scientific proof of where the gun was at the time it was fired. The defense closing is rambling and incoherent. And basically, she's talking about the issue. There are actually not just one, but two shell casings found at the scene. We know that there was some suggestion that there was a test fire, which is why one shell casing might have been far away from where the gun was fired or where she was found, and it took place. Those shell casings are problematic. A lot of the facts are problematic. And I go back, David, to look at the case, the Dinkins case, right? We don't know what happened between him and that girl, but we know about what he did after, we know about what he didn't do after, and that's why he's ultimately probably going to get convicted. How is this any different?
Yeah, I echo exactly what you said. Look, I think he did it, but that's not the standard in this court. It's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you have a medical examiner coming in and not being certain as to the cause or manner, and not coming forward with the proof that the prosecutor needs, and then you douse on top of that some facts that the decedent was suicidal, which came from a relative. I mean, it's not guilty in my mind. I mean, and that's what the system is set up for. It's the highest burden. It's not preponderance like we do in the civil courts. This is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and what that does is it protects the innocent. It will protect the innocent in every situation and avoid mistakes. Yeah. I echo your concerns. I think so. I think he did it. That's not the standard, and neither could the ME. The ME couldn't prove it either.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, the other little thing that plays in favor of the defense is that it was her gun. And, you know, we don't know exactly how it got into her or his hands. All right, our next comment comes from Sonia. Sonia says, I think he's guilty. How did her car get torched far from where she was dead? Assisted suicide, maybe, but the torched car is fishy. And that's the big problem here. If you come to the conclusion that it was assisted suicide, Rich, it's still murder.
That's right. If you think he played a role, if you think he helped her, that she wanted to kill herself and he helped, it is still murder. But I agree with everything David just said. There's too much going on here. There are too many issues to get past that question of whether he actually helped or whether he actually pulled the trigger himself. There's just not proof of that beyond a reasonable doubt. And if the jury does convict him, it's going to be largely on the basis of how he acted after the fact.
Yeah, no doubt. He made some choices afterwards that if he didn't do this, it's going to cost him if, you know, this jury goes that way. All right, Rich Schoenstein, David Bruno, thank you so much for being with me. Always a pleasure to have you guys on the show.